What did you find out about your family that made your eyes literally pop out of your skull? My granddaughter's parents involuntarily placed her into a mental institution on the morning of her high school graduation. They drove her there in her cap and gown, then presented the staff with fake documentation showing she was a runaway with identity delusions. Up until this point, they had a loving parent-child relationship. I only found out 2 weeks after when I went to visit. I asked where she was, and my son and his wife delved into this rehearsed rant about how she had a sudden psychotic break and tried to stab her younger brother in her sleep. None of it made sense. Christy was valedictorian. She'd just gotten into Yale and had talked about how excited she was to go. I remember seeing my 12-year-old grandson Tommy sitting in the corner fidgeting with his plushie like there was something he wasn't. When I asked them all if I could go see Christy, they panicked and said the facility didn't allow visitors for the first month. Doctor's orders. I disregarded their words and drove straight to Oakwood Psychiatric. But the receptionist wouldn't even let me pass the lobby. Family has to approve all visitors, she said. I explained I was family, her grandmother, but apparently that didn't count. I sat in that sterile waiting room for 3 hours until a doctor finally came out. He looked exhausted. Your granddaughter is quite ill. Severe psychosis with violent tendencies. I asked what triggered it. He shuffled through papers pretending to look at her file. Sometimes it just happens. Christy's pediatrician was shocked when I called her. Christy? I just did her college physical 2 weeks ago. Perfect health mentally and physically. She pulled up Christy's records. No history of anxiety, depression, nothing. This makes no medical sense. She promised to reach out to Oakwood but called back frustrated. They wouldn't accept her input. They said the family provided extensive documentation of prior episodes. I snapped. I'd been part of Christy's life since birth. Every soccer game, every science fair, every birthday. There were no episodes. I tried visiting the hospital again and found out my son, Christy's dad, had added my name to the do not visit list. The third time, I saw Christy through a small window in the ward door before security escorted me out. She looked drugged, hollow, nothing like the vibrant girl who'd been accepted to Yale just months ago. My daughter-in-law Jennifer finally agreed to coffee after I threatened to hire a lawyer. She's sick, she kept repeating. You didn't see what we saw. But when I pressed for details, the story kept changing. First it was the knife incident, then it was hearing voices, then making threats. I asked to see the documentation they'd provided. Jennifer went pale. The doctors have all that. I contacted Christy's teachers, her coach, her best friend. Everyone said the same thing. Christy was the most stable, responsible girl they knew. Her best friend mentioned something that blew the gates open though. She'd been worried about Tommy lately, said he'd been acting strange, flinching when her dad was around. I went back to the house to talk about it. When I walked in, I saw Tommy sitting in the living room with the fly on his jeans undone. His dad looked extremely uncomfortable and shot up the moment he saw me. What are you doing? Shut up, I told him. I mentioned Tommy's name and demanded to know what's going on. That's when the both of them went pale. They assured me he was fine, but when I asked to talk to him, they wouldn't let me talk to him alone. I remember going straight to the police. I laid it all out. But the moment I mentioned my granddaughter's dad's name, the officer's face just dropped. He immediately said he was done asking questions and ushered me out telling me they'd contact me after they look into it, i.e. never. That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I broke into my own son's house. They were at some charity gala. My daughter-in-law had posted about it on Facebook. I still had my spare key. When I came in, Tommy was alone and in his room, wide awake despite it being past midnight. When he saw me, he launched himself into my arms. Grandma, you came. He started bawling his eyes out. I spent an hour calming him down and trying to coax the story out of him. My jaw dropped and I actually sat and cried with him when he told me. Within an hour, both his parents were getting arrested and Christy was getting released from the psych ward the very next morning. I didn't see my son and his wife until the court date came, and it's only then that I got the full horrifying picture. Tommy's father had been touching him at home and his mother had been covering it up, but it's what came next that made the entire courtroom basically explode. You see, Christy had been secretly documenting the abuse and was about to expose her father, but he couldn't have that. Not only would that send him to jail, it would also ruin his campaign. He was running for Senate and needed to look good in the eyes of the public. So when he snooped through Christy's phone, he called in a few favors, made some fake documents, and sent Christy away. I remember almost having a heart attack when I realized I raised a monster. I still feel guilty, but at least I feel good knowing him and his wife are rotting in a cell and won't be seeing sunlight for a very long time.